हो नहीं पाया था, बट इस वीडियो में मैं आधा सिलेबस कवर करने की पूरी कोशिश करूंगी। तो ये हमारे क्वेश्चन एंड हम सारे क्वेश्चंस को अच्छे से कवर करेंगे। तो सबसे पहले हम पढ़ेंगे पोस्टमार्टम चेंजेस एंड आर्टिफैक्ट्स। सो दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट चैप्टर। तो इसमें आगम मोटिव्स, लाइवर मोटिव्स, राइगर मोटिव्स पढ़ेंगे। तो एनिमरेट द चेंजेस दैट अकर इन द बॉडी आफ्टर डेथ। बताओ भाई, कौन से ऐसे चेंजेस है जो होते हैं आफ्टर डेथ? एनिमरेट द चेंजेस दैट अकर्स आफ्टर डेथ। आफ्टर डेथ तो बहुत सारे चेंजेस होते हैं, जैसे राइगर मोटिव, आइगो मोटिव, लाइवर मोटिव, तो डिफरेंट डिफरेंट मोटिव है। आइगो मोटिव, लाइवर मोटिव, राइगर मोटिव, तो डिफरेंट डिफरेंट है। आइगर, लाइवर, राइगर, इनके बीच में हम डिफरेंसेस समझेंगे, ठीक है, तो कौन से चेंजेस होते हैं। और सेशन काफी इंटरेस्टिंग होने वाला है। आई बी postmortem changes, signs of death and changes following death. Forensic taphonomy is the study and interpretation of postmortem changes. Signs of death and changes following death. Forensic taphonomy, it is the study and interpretation of postmortem processes of human remains, that is the history of a body following death. So what is forensic taphonomy? There are two words. One is thanatology. Thanatology is study of death knowledge aspects. And taphonomy. Taphonomy means study and interpretation of post-mortem processes of human remains. That is the history of a body following death. It's a study and interpretation of post-mortem post-mortem processes of human remains, that is history of a body following death. So after death, what was the history of the body? A knowledge of signs of death helps to differentiate death from suspended animation. The changes which take place after death are helpful in estimation of the approximation time of death. The signs of death appear in the following order. So first, immediate or somatic death. It is insensibility and loss of voluntary power, cessation of respiration and cessation of circulation. तीन चीजें होती हैं डेथ होते ही। एक तो ब्रेन चल जाता है, दैट इज इनसेंसिबिलिटी, लॉस ऑफ वॉलंटरी पावर। सेकेंड इज सेसेशन ऑफ रेस्पिरेशन, रुक जाता है। एंड थर्ड इज सेसेशन ऑफ सर्कुलेशन, रुक जाता है, ठीक है। अर्ली सेलुलर डेथ, पैलर, लॉस ऑफ इलास्टिसिटी ऑफ स्किन चला जाता है, पूरा स्किन का कलर चल जाता है, दैट इज पैलर, इलास्टिसिटी चली जाती है। चेंजेस इन द आई होते हैं, प्राइमरी फ्लासिडिटी ऑफ मसल्स, लूज हो जाते हैं मसल्स, पहले लूज होते हैं उसके बाद टाइट होते हैं। कूलिंग ऑफ द बॉडी, जैसे नॉर्मल होम्योस्टैसिस, जब बंदा जीवित रहता है तो होम्योस्टैसिस से वो अपना बॉडी टेम्परेचर मेंटेन करता है, बट आफ्टर डेथ कूलिंग ऑफ द बॉडी। Postmortem lividity, there is the postmortem lividity and rigor mortis. We'll talk about rigor mortis and Nissen's rule and rule of 12 also. Okay, late decomposition and decay, putrefaction, adipocene, mummification. So immediate changes होते हैं, insensibility, cessation of brain function, cessation of respiration, cessation of circulation. Second is early cellular death, pallor and loss of elasticity of skin, changes in the eye, primary flacidity of muscle. So the first question is the changes that occur in the body after death. The first is immediate changes, second is immediate changes, second is early cellular death, third is late decomposition and decay. So last stage is putrefaction, adipocene, mummification. Insensibility and loss of movement, cessation of respiration, cessation of circulation, suspended animation. We'll talk about suspended animation in detail. It is in thanatology, okay, suspended animation. Putrefaction is molecular importance, marbling of skin, adipocene, cadaveric spasm, tachynoid, entomology of cadaver. ठीक है, तो insensibility and loss of movement. It is the earliest sign of death, but it can lead to error if precautions are not taken. They are found in cases of prolonged fainting attack, vagal inhibition, epilepsy, trance, catalepsy, narcosis, drowning, and what is this? This is electrocution. So first immediate changes क्या होते हैं? Cessation of brain, respiration, cessation of circulation. The second is early changes. What are the early changes? The early change is pallor. Skin का जो भी color है, elasticity है, वो loss हो जाता है। आई में changes आ जाते हैं, मतलब बाहर का जो भी आप देख सकते हो। Primary flacidity of muscles. मसल्स लूज हो जाते हैं, बॉडी कूल हो जाती है, पोस्टमार्टम लिविडिटी मतलब कलर आने लगता है पोस्टमार्टम. After that, there will be color on the dependent parts of the body. Then there is a rigor mortis. What is late or decomposition and decay? So putrefaction, adipose seed and mummification. What is insensibility and loss of movement? This cessation of respiration, cessation of circulation, suspended animation. What are the changes in skin? What are the changes in the eyes? What is cooling of the body? This is called alga mortis. Alga mortis is cooling of the body. Postmortem cooling. Then we will talk about liver motives and then we'll have a break. Postmortem hypostasis and areas of contact of flattening. So we'll talk about this in very detail. So the first thing is insensibility and loss of movement. So it is the earliest sign of death, but it can lead to error if precautions are not taken. See, they are found in cases of prolonged fainting attacks, vagal inhibition, epilepsy, trance, catalepsy, narcosis, drowning, electrocution. So insensibility and loss of movement, that is the earliest sign of death and it can lead to error because in some other cases also such thing occurs like in case of vagal inhibition, fainting attack, okay, epilepsy, trance, catalepsy, narcosis, drowning, or electrocution, such cases also there is insensibility and loss of movement. What is cessation of respiration? This must be complete and continuous. The stethoscope is placed over the upper positions of the lungs and larynx, where the faintest breath sounds can be heard. Placed over upper portions of lungs and larynx, where the faintest breath sounds can also be heard. The lightest sounds they can also be heard over the upper portions of lungs and larynx. Complete stoppage of respiration for more than 4 to 5 minutes usually causes death. 4 to 5 minutes, the complete stoppage of respiration. Respiration may stop for a few for a very short period without death occurring in other puberty, voluntary attacks, kind stroke breathing, drowning, and newborn infants. Feather test, mirror test, and Winslow test are of historical importance only. Now they are not very much tested. Feather test is placing a feather in front of the nose. So if there is any respiration, the feather will move. But if outside if there is any air, because of that also it can move. So it's not very precise thing. Weather test is there will be formation of the water vapors on the mirror if it is placed against the nose. Winslow's test is also similar to like that. So what is cessation of circulation? The stethoscope is placed over the precordial area where the heartbeat can be heard. Under normal conditions, stoppage of heartbeat for more than 4 to 5 minutes is accepted as evidence of death. But Magnus test, Reichardt's test, Diaphanous test, fingernail cut and heat test are of historical importance only. What is suspended animation? Suspended animation is apparent death. Here the death is actually not taking place, but in this case there is no death. Only stoppage for a voluntary or for other things, because of other things. Like I will tell you, in this condition signs of life are not found as the functions are interrupted for some time or are reduced to minimum. However, life continues and resuscitation is successful in such cases. The metabolic rate is so reduced that the requirement of individual sulfur oxygen is satisfied through the use of oxygen dissolved in body fluids. In freezing of the body or in severe drug poisonings of the brain, the activity of brain can completely stop and some cases start again. Types like voluntary practitioners of yoga can pass into trance, death-like in character. What is involuntary? Suspension of animation lasting from a few seconds to half an hour or more may be found in newborn infants, drowning, electrocution, sunstroke, cholera, narcotic poisoning after anesthesia, cerebral concussion, shock, insanity, etc. This condition can be revived by cardiac massage or electric stimulator and artificial respiration. Involuntary suspension of animation lasting for from a few seconds to half an hour or more may be found in newborn infants, drowning, electrocution, sunstroke, cholera, narcotic poisoning. After anesthesia, it can happen. Prolonged anesthesia or long surgery. Okay, cerebral concussion, shock, insanity, etc. This condition can be revived by cardiac massage, electric stimulator, and artificial respiration. Next, all postmortem changes are dependent on ambient temperature. High temperature accelerates the changes. Changes in the skin becomes pale, ashy white, and loses elasticity within a few minutes of death. Changes in the eye, loss of corneal reflex. This is found in all cases of deep insensibility and therefore not a reliable sign of death. Opacity of cornea. This may occur in certain diseases like cholera, wasting diseases before death. The opacity is due to drying and is delayed for about 2 hours if the lids are closed after death. If the lids are closed after death, then it can be delayed. If the eyelids are open for a few hours after death, a film of cell debris and mucus forms two yellow triangles on the sclera, each at side of the eyelids, with the base towards the margin of the cornea and apex towards medial or lateral canthus of the eye, which become brown and then black, called tachynoid. What is tachynoid? If the eyes are open for a longer time after death, then what will happen? A film of cell debris deposit on the sclera and it deposits in the form of a triangle. The base of the triangle is towards the cornea and the margins, the apex is towards the medial or lateral canthus of the eye. It become brown and then black based on the pollution or dust deposition, which is called tachynoid. Within a few hours upon which dust settles and the surface becomes wrinkled. For this flaccidity of the eyeball, the eyes look sunken and become flaccid due to reduction of intraocular tension. So there is a loss of intraocular tension. The eyes look sunken and become flaccid due to reduction of intraocular tension pressure. Okay. Pupils soon after that, the pupils are slightly dilated because of relaxation of muscles of the iris. Later, they are constricted with the onset of rigor mortis of the constrictor muscles and evaporation of fluid. Retinal vessels, fragmentation of segmentation, tucking of blood columns in the retinal vessels appear within minutes after that and persist for about an hour. The retina is pale for first 2 hours. At about 6 hours, the disc outline is hazy and become blurred in 7 to 10 hours. These changes are of little practical value. Chemical changes. A steady rise in potassium values occur in the vitreous humor after that up to 100 hours. Cooling of the body, it is called alga motis. So you understand what to write in changes of the body after death. First you can write the stages of the death like immediate, early, late. In immediate you can write cessation of brain, respiration and circulation. Early you can write skin, eye changes and muscle changes and temperature. Skin, eye, muscle and temperature. Skin, skeletal muscle, eye and temperature. Okay, late decomposition, decay, putrefaction, adiposity and mummification. Putrefaction, adiposity and mummification. Okay. Insensibility and loss of movement, we know. Cessation of respiration, cessation of circulation. Stoppage of heartbeat for at least 4 to 5 minutes will indicate that this is the evidence of death. But what are the tests? Magnus, ICARS, diaphanous, fingernail. These are the tests. Cessation of respiration, 4 to 5 minutes, stoppage of respiration usually causes death. So, Stokes, voluntary acts, newborn infants, drowning, feather test, middle test, Winslow test. Okay, fine. Flaccid suspended animation, you know that this is a voluntary done by yoga yogis. Okay, involuntary suspension in cases of cholera, poisoning, prolonged anesthesia, in such shock, in such cases you can see. All postmortem changes are dependent on temperature. High temperature is faster, the action is the same. In skin, you will see it will become ashen white, loss of lustrity, pale. Changes in the eye, you will see the corneal reflex will be lost. But in some other cases also terminal, so it's not the reliable thing. Opacity of the cornea because of the dryness, the cornea become opaque. It can be seen in some diseases like cholera and wasting diseases. If the eyelids are open for few hours after the tachinoid will form. Another thing is retinal vessel fragmentation condition. That is trucking sign or red rail sign. Okay, flaccidity of the eyeball. Pupils, you can see initially the pupils will be slightly dilated, but after constriction of iris muscles because of rigor mortis, the constrictor muscles then they become constricted. Okay. What is alga mortis? See, the cooling of the body, chill of death after death is a complex process. It does not occur at the same rate throughout the body. Loss of body heat. The body will not cool according to Newton's law. Energy and heat production stop after somatic death. Energy will stop, heat production stop, which results in fall of body temperature. Yes. Okay. The postmortem rate of heat production by anaerobic glycolysis is very low. Exchange of heat between the core and surface of the body occurs only by conduction. Conduction only by touch. The body cools more rapidly on the surface and more slowly in the interior for about half to 1 hour after death. The rectal temperature falls little or not at all. Postmortem temperature plateau. This is followed by a linear rate of cooling between 0.4 to 0.6 degrees per hour for the next 12 to 16. Then it is gradually becomes slower, and when the temperature is within about 4 degrees Celsius of the environment, rate of cooling becomes very slow. The human body rarely reaches the ambient atmospheric temperature unless the latter is at or near freezing. Probably because enzymes and bacteria actually start during early decomposition. The curve of cooling is similar in early This looks very complicated. A rough idea of approximate time in hours of death can be obtained by using the formula normal body temperature minus rectal temperature by rate of temperature fall per hour. So, exercise or struggle before death may rise the rectal temperature up to 1.5 to 2 degrees Celsius. How to measure the temperature? A laboratory thermometer 25 centimeter long with a range of 0 to 50 degrees Celsius, which can single degree. Read in single degrees is used. The rectum is the ideal place to record temperature except in case of sodomy. Sodomy is related to um, the sexual offenses chapter. The external auditory meters or the nasal passages also can be used to record the temperature. A rough idea of approximate time in hours of death can be obtained by using the formula normal body temperature and rectal body temperature by rate of temperature fall per hour.